The Iranian government has admitted to Sky News that its forces are fighting inside Syria and that its troops have been killed there.
Officials insisted they were battling IS extremists and said they'd rather confront the extremists in Syria rather than inside Iran. Our diplomatic editor, Dominic Waghorn, has this exclusive report from the Iranian capital, Tehran.
There's a corner of Iran's national war cemetery that's rarely seen by the outside world, where they bury the dead from what was till recently a secret war, Iran's military involvement in Syria. We were given unprecedented access to film the graves and posters celebrating the soldiers' sacrifice and talk to mourners. One quietly spoken man showed us pictures of a friend who died in Syria in what he said was a holy war.
I don't think of it as a different country because defending Islam has no borders. They have gone there to defend Islam.
So this is your friend? Another man was mourning an old school friend killed fighting near Aleppo.
At first I was really upset, but inside my heart I'm very happy that he has become a martyr. Not everyone is lucky enough to become a martyr.
Hundreds of Iranians are thought to have died fighting in Syria, alongside allies from Hezbollah and other Shia militia, all supporting the Assad regime. Iranian Revolutionary Guard fighters and special forces are engaged there. At Friday prayers in Tehran, a senior commander, just back from Syria, claimed Iran's fighting Islamic State before it threatens them at home. Iranians are being given the same message more and more as the war in Syria deepens and casualties mount. At first, Iran wouldn't even acknowledge it had forces inside Syria. Now it's openly admitting it and justifying their presence, saying Iranian soldiers are fighting and dying there, attacking Islamic State before it becomes a threat within their own country. But how long can Iran continue losing lives in Syria, and at what cost? In the Iranian parliament, the official response seems to be for as long as it takes.
Any sort of support has some sort of economic cost, but we believe if we do not make that sacrifice and fight against IS in Syria beyond our borders, then we'd have to do it inside them, which will have a much bigger and worse burden.
For a long time, Iran concealed its military activity in Syria. We saw only glimpses. Now, say observers, it may be seeking more approval for being there.
The very fact that Iran is talking more openly about its role in Syria shows they are ready to defend their position, their legitimacy of their support for Assad, in a way that's very unusual and perhaps signifies a degree of an effort to get public international support to portray themselves as being against ISIS.
Iran seems committed as ever to fighting in Syria, along with many other foreign powers on different sides. Cemeteries across the region will continue filling with the dead. Dominic Waghorn, Sky News, Tehran.
Well, joining me now is Dr. Sara Bazoobandi, an Associate Fellow at the international think tank Chatham House. Good evening to you, Dr. Bazoobandi. What is Iran's motivation?
It's a combination of factors. There are a lot of facts on the ground that actually have changed for Iran. The most important fact is that Iran is receiving a high number of death tolls inside Syria, and domestically that requires justification. When you speak to Iranians, especially in smaller towns, they confirm that there are a lot of soldiers and the family of soldiers that are mourning for the loss of their loved ones, and these are all having some serious consequences domestically, so the government feels some justification.
So they feel like they've got to speak out, having been notoriously secretive about this.
So denying their engagement is not going to work anymore because it's out in the society and people are seeing the signs of it and people are feeling the pressure in terms of the number of losses that are being
There's also a domestic agenda in terms of the fear of Islamic State making gains inside Iran, isn't there?
Precisely. That's also a serious threat at the moment. Only a few days ago there was a report in one of the small towns, the town of Kermanshah, which is in one of the western provinces. There was some serious fighting in one of the residential areas between the security forces and those who have association with IS. I think also another factor is that Iran sees and feels the effect of nuclear deal and the lift of sanctions very minimally at the moment. So a lot of economic pressures that existed on Iran have not been lifted because of Iran's involvement with various groups within the region, Iran's regional role, specifically Iran's collaborations with Hezbollah. And at some level, I think Iran is trying now to prove, especially to the Western community, that we are fighting on the same side as you are. So do not blame us, do not increase or maintain the economic pressure because of our involvement.
We are fighting Islamic State
Precisely.
too. We've also seen indirect support for Bashar al-Assad's regime this week in the use by Russian bombers of an Iranian airbase. Those growing ties between Russia and Iran, Assad's two main allies. How deep does that loyalty, that commitment to Bashar al-Assad go for Iran?
I think what drives Iran's involvement in Syria is not the loyalty to Assad's regime. It's the political psyche of Iranian government, as we heard it in the report, that is very much formed around a mindset which is formed and encouraged by 8 years of experience of 8 years of war with Iraq, that if we do not start getting involved in aggression outside of our borders, we are going to have to deal with it within our borders. So that is the main priority for Iran. In fact, that overrides the importance of keeping Assad in his position.
And meanwhile, hundreds, if not thousands, of Iranian soldiers have been killed. How big a price militarily is Iran prepared to pay? And also, as we heard in the report, the economic costs of this engagement with Syria.
It has been a very expensive operation for Iran. And given the oil prices are very low at the moment, given the export level of Iran has dropped quite dramatically as a result of sanctions, that economic pressure, in fact, increased the difficulties as a result of this involvement, and increased the difficulties pushed because of Iran's involvement in this operation. How far Iran is willing to go, I don't think anytime soon Iran is going to back out from Syria or withdraw from their position in Syria or in Iraq. For that matter. And the reason, one of the reasons I think that Iran is now openly speaking about its engagement in Syria is that perhaps they feel that it's going to be a long-standing one. So they need to maintain their position, they need to justify it domestically, they need to justify it internationally, and they need to be able to bear the pressure, and that's basically very important for them to not be in denial status anymore.
Okay, Dr. Sara Bazoobandi, thank you very much indeed.